Blog Talk Radio.
Welcome to the Buchanan Report, this 13th day of April 2017. My name is Ivan Buchanan, and I am your host. My co-host, as always, are Ron Hanks and Rhonda Moon Lane. If you're joining us for the first time, our call-in number is 347-857-1710. Again, that number, 347-857-1710. Write it down. That is ours. It never changes. For those of you that do call in, and please watch your language, we try to keep it as clean as we can here. Our guest tonight is whistleblower Rob O'Neill regarding problems at Bay Pines VA Medical Center. But before we get to him, I want to remind everyone that our website is thebuchananreport.com, where you can find all your veterans news alerts, and it is updated regularly, and it is all updated except for one that came in about 15 minutes ago, so I'll have that up after the show tonight. So please go there for all your veterans news alerts. We also have an attorney section on the website. If you need an attorney, think you need one, go to that section, click on it, pick one of the attorneys, give them a call to talk to you for nothing. And if you're having problems in getting an appointment with the VA or any other problems, feel free to send us an email. We help a lot of people out regarding a lot of issues, quite frankly. We're just not a radio show on Tuesdays and Thursdays. We're always got stuff going on behind the scenes. I want to remind everybody of a Facebook group, VA Truth Tellers. The vast majority of them are current or past employees of VA. In fact, the two owners of the group are whistleblowers and currently still working at their respective VA hospitals. So, but if you want to know what's going on, go there, check them out, join the group, stay dialed in as to what's going on. That's for me right now. Ron, you got anything?
I do. I just had one come to my attention from Lauren. I don't know how she found this, but she is sent it. It's over 500 grievous injuries or deaths at VA hospitals in 2013. They just got this in Australia. So over 500 incidents. Let's see. I have just scanned it real quick. I just got it.
Freedom of
they don't
Information
know how many
request?
Yes, it is a Freedom of Information request. They reported it in the Washington Free Beacon. So I'm putting that on our Buchanan report. I just had another one come from the Concerned Veterans of America that's saying how bad was the Phoenix VA scandal. Well, this is how it started. Veterans on the secret wait list in 2014, over 3,500 patients who died on that wait list between April 2013 and April 2014 are 40. Investigations opened after Phoenix is another 93. Turnover rate of appointed directors at just the Phoenix VA facility since the scandal broke. So 4 years? 7.
Wow.
208 days before Sharon Hellman was fired. Another 789 days until 3 more Phoenix officials were fired. Officials successfully fired as a result of the Phoenix VA scandal? None.
Really?
None. Yep.
So all those that they claim were fired out of there actually went to the appeals board and got their jobs back and went somewhere else.
Exactly. The star rating.
Full pay.
Yeah. Star rating is 1 out of 5, but remember that doesn't really mean anything according to the VA. Patients currently waiting more than 30 days for an appointment at Phoenix VA Hospital, 4,318. That's another 1,000 than when this started.
Yeah.
It shouldn't even be a 1 star.
Yeah.
No,
well,
it
the
should
stars
have
don't mean anything.
It should have a rectum in front of it with a minus sign on it.
Yeah, I agree. So apparently they've learned nothing in the last 3 years. Did you see their new suicide prevention or prediction tool they're launching? I got this just this afternoon.
That article is on our
Okay.
on the website, is it not?
Yes, it is. And guess what it's called? Reach Vet, and that means Recovery, Engagement, and Coordination for Health Veterans Enhanced Treatment. It is a computer program. It's a predictive behavioral analytics program.
Oh, Jesus.
It's going to sift through all the veteran health data to find veterans who are at risk of suicide. Then it'll send a little note to your doctor or mental health provider to have them call you. Yeah.
So now we're getting involved in Minority Report technology, huh? Get them before they do it?
They haven't said who made the software. We don't know that yet. They haven't told us yet. I'm thinking it's probably the guy from, let's see, who does your taxes? Oh, I don't remember. I've been watching too much old-time TV the last week or so.
I was going to get Spielberg.
That could be. I think
I
he
don't
did a
see
movie
how
about
that could do anything other than spend money.
Exactly. I don't know. Who knows what they're going to be looking at. And about 6 months ago, I think, we had a story on the Oklahoma veterans that had died in hospice. You know, they'd been transferred from hospital to hospital and then found in the hospice. Well, just today, the lawmakers there called for an investigation. They've actually decided to lock up the heart monitors and the electrocardiogram machines. The VA's decided that's a good thing.
Lock them up.
I don't know why.
As like
they're
in an enclosed room?
Yeah, instead of having them out in the department centers where people can use them, they're going to be taken out and locked up.
Okay, so that's what I was getting at.
So the doctors are not going to be using them?
I guess. The lawmaker said there's a move to decrease the level of care for our veterans and move our veteran centers to the level of care of nursing homes.
Oh, boy.
Yeah,
so we can contract it out and not have to deal with it. There you go.
The Oklahoma VA said that the centers aren't staffed with personnel qualified to analyze results from an electrocardiogram machine. It said a resident experiencing chest pain should be sent to an emergency room. How's that sound?
You're jesting. I mean, this is nuts.
I'm not. No, it's true.
I thought
the article is on.
Wait a minute. We're talking about VA hospitals now. Key word here.
Yeah.
Hospital.
Yep.
Yeah. Yes, we are.
They can take your blood pressure and your temperature, but they can't check your heart.
Right. It's because their budget was cut $10 million in the last 7 years. If they had all that money back, so if they could have that money back, then they could actually provide the services that they used to and hire additional doctors and operate 24-hour lab services and many other luxuries that are currently not feasible.
So let's just forget the agreement and the contract that the government has with the with the veterans there. And
yes.
I see. Okay.
Forgot to remind you, they only took part of that money that they took away from them and spit it on that VA hospital on the East Coast for the solar array over the employees' parking area that only operates during the day because it doesn't have any battery backup.
Right.
So, yeah.
Yeah.
Here we are.
I saw something the other day from Dr. Sue. They're wanting to put in a whole bunch more money into Northport, VA.
Really?
Yeah. That's all the good news I had tonight. So, that was 5 minutes worth. So
that's really not good news, actually.
I know.
No, it wasn't.
No,
As far as North Fork, I wouldn't put any more money into North Fork until people start taking the signs off their lawns that say sailors and dogs keep off the grass.
Yes.
Yeah. Well, before I turn it over to you, all this dismal news, I've got one that's upbeat anyway. The headline is 1 in 4 don't consider one-night stands cheating. I was going to go have a talk with my wife, but I thought better of it. But
don't even mention it. I don't want to see the bruises on your body.
Yeah, you better keep that to yourself.
Yeah, I didn't think I would make it through that one. Come on, man, it's 25%,
Yeah. You don't have enough guns to save you.
So that's my that's all I got. Go ahead, Ron.
Okay. I have one that I picked up off of, I believe it was Tuesday's news alerts on the Veterans page, and it came from the Lubbock Avalanche Journal. It's one we've talked about before, the suicide hotline at the VA.
Yes.
And it was titled VA Defends Work to Fix the Suicide Hotline. The VA Deputy Undersecretary is claiming it is now a rare instance that calls are bumped to a backup center.
Right.
Calls are being answered within 8 seconds. Well, it takes, to deal with the person and talk to them, because if they're that stressed they're calling that suicide hotline, you're not going to get all the information you need right away. It takes longer than that to find out what's going on. They're training counselors to talk to them on the phone, or is this somebody just answering the phone? Because it's a backup system. It's going to a contract.
Yeah, but there's another point to this as well. It doesn't do any good if you answer every single call that comes in if you're not able to spend the time, quality time with that individual.
To deal with them, yes.
And that's why, and then, I reported a few weeks ago that a lot of veterans are afraid to call in because of the information they have to give. They're afraid of getting put on a list, thus their freedoms being taken away, gun rights and this and that and whatever. So, if you remember, with all these problems going on, that's why on the Buchanan report we have our page there, to where the first people there are individuals and we go into, organizations, et cetera. So we've got our own hotline going there. So
my whole thing when I saw this and read it is we're just right back to the old administration.
Yep.
And they're still claiming they're only losing 20 lives a day to suicide. I don't know how they can claim that figure. I don't know how. It's hard for us to claim 22 when there's hospitals that don't even report them.
So what are we supposed to do?
Even
if they're accurate, it went from 22 to 20. Are we supposed to stand up and give them, a round of applause?
Applause? I don't know. I think it was their attempt to try and embarrass the people that embarrassed them.
Don't get me wrong. I hope it is coming down and all of that, but still, one is one too many is the point that I'm making.
Yeah. But so I guess when I read that article, and I didn't write it all down. I just wrote down points of it that I was seeing that just threw up a big red flag. Nothing's changed.
Doesn't appear.
No, it hasn't.
Yet they're claiming it is. It's kind of baffling.
It's frustrating.
All right, that was the only one I had. I will turn it to you guys. I need to go check the switchboard, and I will be back.
All right.
Oh, he can't do that to us.
He just did.
He can't. I can't believe he's doing this to me.
Well, he did it.
Right. You got any more there, Rhonda?
I am actually opening one right now. Let me see here. Joshua Lee, who's 33, wanted to shock people with the number of pills he has to take every day. My internet is so slow here. He prefers to take marijuana. You've got to see the picture of this, though. I can tell you about it. But let's see, 10 pounds.
10 pounds of marijuana?
No, he put Smarties, Smartie candies, the little candies, in a plastic bag. It is 9,828 Smarties. That's how many pills he has to take.
Unbelievable.
I'm going to save this.
Please do. Put it on the site there, if you would. This is the Buchanan Report radio show. We're going to take a short break. When we come back, we will be speaking with whistleblower Rob O'Neill regarding problems at Bay Pines VA Medical Center. Be back here in just one moment.
You are listening to the Buchanan Report radio show. Our guest tonight is Rob O'Neill. Rob is a U.S. Air Force veteran. He was a security police staff sergeant. Rob worked for the U.S. Department of Veteran Affairs as a police lieutenant from 2000 to 2016. Hi, Rob. How are you tonight?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on tonight, guys.
Great. I'm glad to have you here. So tell us a little bit about your career at the VA, what you've done.
Well, for starters, yeah, great, thanks. I started the job back in 2000. I was basically recruited out of the local police academy down here in St. Petersburg. I had met with the deputy chief down there in a training class, and basically he offered me a position a couple months later. And I started the job. It was a wonderful job for the years. I have no complaints about that. Love helping the vets. It's a wonderful opportunity. I'm glad they gave that to me. Everything was great up until about maybe 2008 when all this nonsense started. We had an old police chief. He retired. And then they hired this other police chief. His name was Robert Shogren back in 2008. And this is when all the funny business started, back in 2008. We were in a meeting one day, a staff meeting, and Chief Shogren, at the time, his first introduction to us as a supervisors says, I'm here to fire people. I am here to remove supervisors and remove these folks.
Did that make you feel all warm and fuzzy?
So I walk outside after the meeting. We just hear what his introductory speech has to say. And me and another guy, Mike Corcoran, another sergeant of mine that worked with me, we walk outside, and he looks at me, old New York guy, old New York cop. He looks at me and says, Rob, we got problems. And I said, we sure do. So probably about 5 months later, some of the guys got together and filed EEO complaints against him for whistleblower, tampering, retaliation, things like that.
Right.
So it was about 9 to 13 individuals at the time. They were removed from service about 6 months, 4 to 6 months after he got to the station. And they were removed for all kinds of things, all kinds of trumped up charges and things like that. And basically they got an attorney. And about 50 days later, they were brought back to work, and everything was dropped. Now, once they did that, when they filed the attorney, they filed the lawsuit. And that's the $1.3 million lawsuit that you hear about at Bay Pines.
Right.
Okay.
And
I gotta bust in here, Rob. Do you have a computer or something on with the volume turned up listening to the show?
No, not here. Let me check. Okay, you should be good.
Okay, yeah. It's giving us some feedback. I can hear it now as I'm speaking. It's giving us feedback that's actually causing problems.
Okay. Actually, it's my TV. I'm sorry.
Okay, no problem.
So anyway, a lawsuit was filed in, I think it was about 2010, the actual lawsuit was filed, that EEO lawsuit. And pretty much that lawsuit compromised of whistleblower retaliation. And the interesting thing on this was a sexual harassment complaint also included in that. It was from a female officer we had against our deputy chief, Manny Morales, at the time. And I was kind of taken aback by that when that was filed. I never knew anything about this. Then it just popped out of nowhere with this sexual harassment complaint. And so I started putting things together, and I said, do I get involved in this or do I don't? But it's time to take a stand on these things. So I was pretty much a witness, against the government, because I supervised a lot of these folks. And that was my position. Do you want to get involved? Do you don't? Do you do the right thing? Or how do you go about this? How do you navigate this? This thing was a landmine, basically a minefield. So once this was done, it was in court for district court down here in Tampa for about maybe 4 years, this lawsuit. And it was settled, I think it was 2014 it was settled for that $1.3 million. And the interesting thing here, this management through the VA at Bay Pines, Director Suzanne Klinker, they were told by the district court judge, they were told to knock it off down there at that facility with the retaliation, knock it off. And some managers up there at the director, the Pentab level, were sent to training courses and how to deal with things, and how to take education courses within the VA, how to knock these things off, and how to not engage people, how to get to that level, settle your problems, mitigate these problems at a lower level. Do what you can.
Right.
Because what the VA does, my experience is what they do is they push you into litigation. They refuse to negotiate. They refuse to solve these problems at the lowest level possible. And what that means is through, any kind of arbitration. They don't care. Yeah. They're protected. They don't care. They'll push you into arbitration, through that into litigation with lawyers. You attain lawyers and you pay all this money, and pretty much they want to put you in the poorhouse. And they don't want you doing anything. They don't want you having a job again. Once you leave there, they'll do things to you. They'll reach out to your new employer. I've seen that done. The folks I worked with over the years, They leave the facility, leave the VA service, and they go elsewhere, and they will reach out. I've seen it done. They will reach out to your current employer, whether you're in the private sector or not, in the other sector. They will reach out and say, there is a federal investigation on this person that you just hired, just to let you know this. We're just letting you know whether that investigation was dropped or not, however you want to call it. But they will do this stuff. And I know one guy, his name is TJ, I worked with. He left the facility. He was involved in that lawsuit. And what happened is he went and got a job at CENTCOM at MacDill. He was over the position down there. They reached out to CENTCOM down there at MacDill and had his job offer rescinded. He was a police officer with me, had a job down there. A $60,000 a year job that the VA reached out to them and rescinded that position. That is horrible. That is the reach these people are willing to go through to still get you.
Let me
no
jump
where
in
you are.
here. This is Ivan here. You're not with the department now, correct?
No. I had retained an attorney back in November. I left. They reached out on me, retaliation, reached out on me for being a witness in that case. And I did receive, I did get an attorney. His name is Leon Blaze, for your folks out there, Blais. He's works within the district court system. Really good. He's a guy up in Boston. He bounces back down here from Florida up there. Real good guy. He, is very knowledgeable of the VA system. And he just says to me, they're just a bunch of crooks down there. It's corruption. Nobody down there at that facility is held accountable.
Are you in current litigation now, or is it over?
Yeah. No, it just started, actually. Actually, my suit was filed this week, I believe, in D.C. District Court up there in Washington, up there. Basically, he wanted to, from my understanding, is he wanted to keep it out of down here and just put it up there. So I said, that's fine. Whatever you have to do, that's fine with me.
When they reached out, did that cost you your job where you were at or where you were going?
Yes. Absolutely. Absolutely.
Well, more power to you. We've had people on, correct me if I'm wrong, guys, but from Bay Pines.
Yes.
And, whistleblowers, people that have gone through the litigation. In fact, one particular individual, can't remember her name. I wouldn't mention it if I did, but said that, she leaned quite heavily on the union there, and basically, I believe, for 2 years, and all the union did was kind of go through the motions, and in the final analysis, basically just led her right down the path to the lions. And we've just talked to so many people. Well, we've talked to 2 or 3 people out of Bay Pines here on the air.
Yes.
And
oh, great. Okay, great.
And really heard some bad things. What I'm interested in is you were in the law enforcement there, end of it. And I guess, one of my main questions, would be this. As law enforcement, I would assume that complaints are being filed with law enforcement there, correct?
Yes, correct. Yes.
Okay, now, one of my questions would be this. You got the head of that facility there. Are you under the head of that facility? I mean, do you have someone files a complaint with someone? So someone files a complaint with you, and it has to do with another individual there at the VA facility. Could even be the head of that facility, and you're under them.
Correct.
How does that impact do what you can't do, etc.?
Well, it's funny you said that. It's great you pointed that out, because I can reference a case a number of years ago, maybe about 12 years ago, that did happen. We had a detective at our facility. There was a complaint against a high-level person in HR that something was going on, and this detective at the time, he actually filed an arrest affidavit. Through his investigation, of course, he found probable cause enough to put a state charge on this individual. And once they found this out, they removed him from the position and canceled that charge. They leaned on that police chief at the time, not the current one now, but the old one, his predecessor. They reached out on that and had that thing thrown out very quick. And that's what you have. These folks are just not held accountable. at that level.
Well, my question, okay, so let me follow this, okay? Let me continue here. Yeah. Okay, so that happened. What recourse did that law enforcement officer, if he or she wanted to pursue the issue and say, no, this is bullshit. You may be over me,
right.
but this is law enforcement here, and you don't tell me what to do. What could that individual have done if he or she wanted to press the issue to say, no, I am pressing these charges?
Yeah, what you could do is we're under the facility as police. We are under central office, and that's compromised of OSNLE, Office of Security and Law Enforcement in the VA. You can, as what he could have done is reached out to them as an inspector at that level up there in D.C. and pleaded his case to them. Then he has the other avenues of the AFG union, or file a whistleblower complaint, or file an EEO. You just throw the whole bowl of everything at them, file everything.
Yeah, but the problem here is just like the head of the facility, if not a doctor, trying to tell a doctor what to do. Even more so, if the head of that facility is not part of law enforcement, they have no business interceding on telling you guys what to do, not to do. That's what
right.
You guys are trained for.
No, that's a great question. I'll tell you something else too. Our union, our basic regular police officers are within the union. Okay, they're AFG members, so they are covered under union when anything happens. Okay. Now, let's say that union represents everybody at that facility. Just about, if you're not a supervisor, you are not covered in the union. Now, let's say if that police officer arrested another bargaining unit member that was in that union, and this happened before. So what that other employee will do is he'll file some complaint with the union and say, that officer did something to me on that arrest that's not true and it didn't happen. So that union could intervene, and they also represent that officer as well. So now you have a conflict. Now, what would supersede what in this situation? That's happening.
That don't work. Does the head of that
No.
facility have the power to fire a law enforcement officer?
They sure do. They
Really?
sure do.
So then why in the hell do you have a chief of police there then?
Well, a lot of things, they just look the other way on things. They believe everything that these are, like our chief of police will go tell them. We were never consulted on things. He was the ultimate voice of that police department, and would go up to that director's office at the head of the facility and go tell her whatever, him or her, and say, this happened, and this happened, and that's it. They would not discuss anything with you. They would not reach out to the person, maybe that the complaint was filed, the regular police officer on the street. They will not go back to him and say, we want to talk to you and find out the bottom of this. They don't do that. They just take their word. Their word is gospel. I'll tell you, their word is gospel. And once they hear that from that police chief or that, executive of that department, that's it. And that word is gospel, and you're gone. And basically what they want to do is they want to throw you out on the street, put you on the street, and let you fight to get your job back. You, like I said before, you go file the attorney, you go get the attorney, you go spend all your money you saved all your life. They'll let you fight to get your job back. And you know what? If we're wrong, we're wrong. And we will pay you out. We will litigate with you, and if we lose, we'll pay out. We will pay out. We will file non-disclosure, and you can have your job back if you win.
Let me switch gears and kind of go in another direction. A lot of calls that I've received, emails, et cetera, and we've had a couple people on the show as well, as far as veterans coming in, and like one particular individual, he talks loud anyway. He's just a loud individual. Apparently, one of the employees there felt that, he was a bit agitated, and he was, whoever the employee was hit the button or whatever it is to summon you guys, and they come, and the trigger was pulled real quick on this individual as far as face planting him and the whole 9 yards. And, I spoke to my own private attorney that's a West Point graduate and all of that, and he says, for years, you have a lot of people that come into the VA, that, have problems, and sometimes they get agitated, and, he was really kind of unfamiliar with what's going on. He says for years, the staff there has handled people like that, but now all of a sudden, they're face planting them, arresting them, doing whatever. Have you had much of that happen out of Bay Pines, and any comments you have to make regarding that? Because quite frankly, law enforcement for the VA in some facilities have really gotten a bad name regarding these issues that I'm speaking to.
No, you're correct in that assumption there. That happens quite regularly there at our facility. That does happen. You know, you have veterans come in with hearing loss of hearing, tinnitus, all that stuff going on. Mm-hmm. And this happens. They go talk loud because they can't hear what's going on, so they just normally talk loud. And here's where the crux of the problem is with that. It's the staff. It's the staff member behind that counter. You know, if they hear somebody, if they don't like the way they're talked to, they'll push that button because they know that button will save their butt.
Well, let me ask you the next
That's their
question.
way out of things. Mm-hmm.
Here's the next question. A member presses that button, you get there, and this party wants something done with that veteran. Can you override and say, you know, I've sat here and monitored this, and no, I'm not going to. Or do you have to do what you're told by that, you know, other employee?
No, my experience is that it's up to law enforcement discretion in that moment there. That would be my discretion to take any action or not to take any action. To say, look, I talked to this guy, he's not a problem, he's okay, and just let him go to his appointment. That's what you want to do. You want to get these guys in. That is your job. That is your job. Your job is not to put people in jail. It is, but it's not. Your first priority is that job as situational law enforcement is to get folks in safely and get them out. That's your job. To get them where they need to go. And that's your job.
Yeah, I hope you don't mind me going down this road here a little bit, because we've had a few people on behind the scenes. You know, we've gotten, like I said, a lot of calls, a lot of communication regarding these type of issues. And quite frankly, you know, I personally thank you for coming on, you know, the show, because it's hard to get someone in your position, you know, what you have done for the VA, to come on and speak honestly and truthfully about this, you know. And you know, my whole career, you know, I've gone against, you know, corrupt government, you know, period, all the way from agencies to individuals, from local, state, federal government. And, you know, a lot of people, they immediately derive from that, oh, you're a cop hater. No, I'm not a cop hater. You know, you got to have cops out there, but cops are just like anything. You got bad cops, you got bad dentists, doctors, plumbers, you know, and the bad ones have to be dealt with. And it don't sound like you're a bad one. Let me get that out there. But I appreciate you coming on, because I'm sorry, I got a few questions when it comes to this stuff, because we have been hit with all kinds of, you know, correspondence regarding people in this situation. Ron, you reported on one guy out of Long Beach there, you know.
Yeah. And they went to his home later and put him through it again.
You know, we can go into that. I mean, there's hours. I could tell you things that would blow your mind. That will blow your guys' mind, what things I've seen over the years. You know, one thing to get into here is I like to talk about is the suicide stuff, the veteran suicides.
Please.
To get into that, if you guys got something on it, have any questions on that. But I could tell you in the last maybe 3 years out there, I've worked myself about maybe 5 to 6 suicides. With one was with a K-bar, and the other 5 were firearms involved. And this is a huge problem. And that little program they're going to come out with, I don't see how that's going to, you know, do anything, to be honest with you. I just don't see it. These things are a problem. It's an epidemic.
Yeah. Not to be sarcastic, Rob, but did you answer the call within 8 seconds and resolve it within like 10 or 20? So you can go on to the next one? Okay. I'll rest my case.
Right.
They're playing with numbers out there that they shouldn't even be touching.
No, they shouldn't. You know, one other thing, you know, to get back beyond the suicide issue is I want to talk about the health and welfare checks in the VA. And I don't know if you know this or not, but a lot of these things happen. A lot of veterans are placed on a suicidal, a suicide list, a prevention list. In your medical record, if you have anything, you are put down as a suicide risk, as a high risk. You may not know that or not. I encourage all these veterans to go in your record and look at this stuff and find this stuff out. Because you may miss an appointment, for example. I've seen a lot of this a lot of times through the years. you may be on that suicide risk list. You may not know it. But if you miss an appointment, let's say for lab work, you don't know, you were never notified of the appointment. Let's say for lab work, you missed the appointment, or your psychiatrist, whatever it is, you miss that appointment, and all of a sudden the cops are at your house, maybe 5, 6 o'clock at night, knocking on your door. The local sheriff's department or Metro PD or whatever you have at your, where you live, you got some cop knocking on your door, checking on you, wanting to make contact with you, and make sure you're okay. And the veteran might answer the door and say, well, why do I got the cops at my house? And he's going to ask you, that cop will ask you, well, the VA's calling us. They want to make sure you're okay because you're on a suicide watch list. And
so
this veteran may or may not know it.
So you're advocating that every veteran out there should have their medical records be made available through the portal, and they should check it regularly.
That's my summation on that. That's my recommendation also. To just go, find this out. Find this stuff out. If you're on these kind of lists or not, because the VA is great at concocting lists and putting things, compartmentalizing lists all over the place. They're fantastic at that. They put everything in a little list and all this stuff. They're great at this stuff.
Yeah,
but
every time.
one thing.
I'm sorry, Rob. Go ahead. I thought you were done. Go ahead.
Another thing is too. I'm looking at manpower things, and to go back to that is manpower issues. I was looking at it one time. I said, why did we have in 2014? Why did we have 340 to 50 calls for suicide? I had to put the officers out there on a call to do a police report on suicide calls within the VA. Some veteran called in and threatened suicide. He did or didn't, or a doctor called it in, whatever have you there. So I'm going to say, why do we have 350 of these a year? And not only that, we're sucking up local resources, too, to go send these guys out to their house. So you have not only that, you have the local police departments going back to us and say, you're sending us out guys on wild goose chases a lot of times to these veterans' homes, and we can't do this stuff anymore. We were notified by 2 local departments to say, we can't do your work no more. But you have that there. Now, I looked at these lists and I said, what time of the day are these things happening? It was from maybe 3 in the afternoon to 6 p.m. And the majority of these things, maybe 60 to 70% of these things were going on in the afternoon. I said, why are these going on in the afternoon? You break it down, you look at the report, and you say, well, the doctors are calling these in. I said, why are the doctors calling these health and welfare checks for suicide risks? Then you look at it down, you break it down more, and you go look into it more. Then you see, well, the guy misses the appointment, and that doctor is liable for that patient. So once that doctor walks out the door at the end of their day, at the end of their shift, they put it back on the police. They call their list in the patients that didn't show up, and they put it back on the police. So they're covered. So they put on the police service to go make contact or have somebody make contact with these vets. And that's what they do. They walk out the door and they call the PD and say, I got these 4 guys. They're on my suicide list. They're high risk. And we need to do a health and welfare check. And that's how that works. The majority of them, that's how that works.
Yeah.
I've got another question for you. I'm going to give you an instance here, okay? And we had this gentleman on the show, and I'm not going to mention even the state that this gentleman was in. But my question is going to basically be general, so you don't have to worry about me trying to get you tied up in this actual case. The individual had some problems at the VA facility. He was asked to leave. He was told he couldn't come back anymore. Had to go to, another, offsite, not the VA, but, like an emergency care tied with the VA, whatever, to get his, medication and all of that. And eventually that all got worked out. But while this was going on, what happened was the guy is a homeowner, and he is at home, and all of a sudden VA police, they have him under surveillance. At one point, they actually came to his door, came in. His story is they basically, dealt with him as if they owned the place, and was very rude and abrupt with the way that they spoke to him, and basically treated him like a redheaded, stepchild there. My question is this: you know, we all know that you're police, and especially when you're at the facility, you know, you guys control what's going on there. Does it go to the point to where just because a guy is a veteran and is going to a VA that you know it goes out that far to where they can where does the line drawn to where, wait a minute, you're out of this. If there's a problem, it's got to be, you know, the local PD or the sheriff or whatever, because they were apparently just acting as if, you know, they're cops, they can do what they want, and they're there.
Right. I was going to get into that too. What you're talking about, there's jurisdictional issues.
Correct.
These things, each VA is not like McDonald's. You get a Big Mac as a Big Mac as a Big Mac. These VAs are different. Their jurisdiction is different, and it depends on where you're at. Each state is different. Depends on where you're at. Now, like our some have exclusive jurisdiction, some have reciprocal, and some have proprietary. Now, our VA has, you can enforce state laws on the property, you can enforce federal laws on the property. Some you can't, some are exclusive to just federal laws only. Now, I've never seen someone at our facility over the years go out to someone's house and do something like that. So, now, if you experience something like that, needs to be reported. They may or I don't believe they have the jurisdiction to go do that.
Well, I don't see how
they don't have that off property.
I personally, I want to play attorney here or anything else. I was with a law firm
right.
for years, but when I heard this, it was very disturbing because, you know, the only difference here is, well, what if the guy was a veteran but not seeking, you know, medical care at the veteran facility? You know, to me, the line, the line isn't, well, you know, if you weren't here because we wouldn't have anything to do with you, wouldn't have anything over. But because you come here and get, you know, VA medical care at the VA, now all of a sudden we have this type of jurisdiction. That's crap. Okay, I just don't see how.
No, you're right.
I don't see how.
You are absolutely right. No, it doesn't. I'll tell you this. I've seen a lot of cases get thrown out because of lack of, you know, the investigatory process, lack of probable cause. Lots of them get thrown out because of that. I mean, I don't. Yeah, I'm not digging on the guys over the years. I'm not digging on them, but I know they're listening. But I know for a fact that you need to be on solid ground when you do this stuff. If you're wrong, you're wrong. I'll just tell you, each VA, you just take an imaginary line around that place. That is your jurisdiction. It does not exceed that. You're not on firm ground doing those things. They should know that, and they should know not to do that stuff.
Yeah, but the vet still pays a deep price for it because even, you know, he gets arrested and he has to go through the court process. He can't bond out because he doesn't have the money. So he spends 2 months in jail, and the judge looks at it and throws it out. There's no compensation or anything else, and they're free to do it again.
Right. Now, one thing I like to point out to the folks listening, the vets listening, there is a thing that if you don't know, it's called Veterans Court. They do that program, and I've seen that work somewhat through the years. You know, for small misdemeanor charges, they can defer that if you ask for it. If you're a vet, you find yourself locked up and you can't get bonded out, you can ask for a Veterans Court. They will move the case over back to the VA and put you through a program and kind of so you can mitigate those charges, you know, lesser charges, things like that. I've seen it work before. It's a great program. It does work. It does work for these guys. And if you're a vet listening, you know, please use that program if you find yourself in that position. It's a wonderful program. We have a lot of training on it. Now, to go back, the other thing.
Well, just to add a little bit of clarity and tie this off, you know, the bottom line is this. You're police. You're federal police, okay? And I'm just going to ask you the question. You're working at the VA hospital. You leave. You see someone speeding. Just because you're a federal cop, do you have the right to pull that individual over and issue a citation?
No, you do not. You exceeded your jurisdiction if you do.
Exactly. And that's
like I said, you haven't.
That I'm getting at here. It's a jurisdictional issue. And I don't see where any, you know, you're saying, well, it depends on what state. If I heard you correctly, if I didn't, please correct me. But the point I'm making is the scenario that I just laid out, I don't see any reason why a federal police officer coming from a VA facility could do what they did, unless they're investigating something like someone has made the accusation that this particular individual who's a vet was here accosted or threatened. Then now that's an investigation that has to be had on that particular individual, and that VA police obviously have the right to go to his home, to question him on that situation. But not to act the way it was portrayed by this particular individual on how, he was actually threatened by, and I'm saying, no, they can't be doing that, So.
Well, I can tell you it has happened before. I've heard cases that does happen. They've out there in the local traffic, in the boulevard out there, wherever their facility is. I won't say what state, what facility, but that has happened. They had cops out there writing tickets. VA cops out there on the state highway writing tickets.
The last question I would have on this issue would be this. Should a veteran feel like he or she is being dealt with heavy-handed and, like a scenario like I just laid out, what recourse does that individual have against that officer or officers? And realistically, what's really going to happen?
I can. My opinion on that is if you feel that happened to you, go to the supervisor, go to that officer's supervisor, and sit down and have a conversation with that supervisor and find out, and do your best to mitigate that problem. I've seen charges drop before over the years because things happen like that. There may have been incorrect things done, or whether it's a training issue. We all make mistakes. And
Absolutely.
even here's the thing though, if you find yourself, you're a vet and you find yourself in that position, absolutely, get yourself an attorney, whether it's a public defender, and find out what the jurisdiction that officer had. Find out whether they make sure they connected all their dots in their case. Make that challenge. Throw that challenge out back to the VA. Put that challenge back on them. Make them prove that officer did exactly what he was supposed to do. And, make your case. That's the way you make your case.
We're going to need to take a short break here. When we come back, we are going to be coming back into our final segment. And I want to make sure that we get, everything out there that you want to talk about, Rob. I'm sorry I took up some of your time there.
No, that's no problem. I'm glad to get this stuff out. I'm glad to.
In fact, I'd love to have a off-air discussion with you if that's possible sometime in the future.
Sure.
A lot of people are in your position. Even ex-federal coppers that worked at the VA. They're for whatever the reason they're reluctant in really having a down-to-earth discussion, and that's really a
right. No, it's great. It's great to get the information out because of the lack of communication going on.
Yeah.
Nobody knows what our job is. A lot of vets don't even know we exist. We didn't exist till 1990. So, the object is to get the word out and find out what that resource is when you go out there. Find out what we're there for.
Well, I will
look
say
at these things.
It is very disturbing to hear that here you're an officer, you got a chief of police, but the big man who's in charge of that ivory tower that everyone's working under can actually tell that chief of police or whatever what to do, this and that. That's very disturbing to me.
Right. And one quick point here, that this police chief, Robert Sjogren, the Bay Pines Medical Center, all these things he holds people accountable for. This man, last year, on the day after St. Paddy's Day, was found asleep in his office. I don't know if you knew that or not, but that was there was an investigation on that. It was an internal investigation. Nobody knows what the results are of that. Nobody knows. I don't know. Some folks were interviewed. Actually, there was photos taken of him sleeping in there and thrown out to the world out there, social media and things, sleeping in his office. This is the man that judges you, okay? He's responsible for the safety and security of that whole facility. And at 7:30 in the morning, he comes to work and he's conked out in his office. That is the man responsible for the entire facility. That is one of the largest Tier 1 facilities in the country. And that's what this man does.
I guess the
And
only consolation to that would be if he was caught with a redhead, not a little boy, huh?
Right. And I could tell you one thing, though. The good news is he was removed from his position a week ago.
Still took too long, though. Still took too long.
Removed.
On that note,
Exactly.
we're going to take a short break. This is the Buchanan Report radio show. We're speaking with whistleblower Rob O'Neill regarding problems at Bay Pines VA Medical Center, and we'll be back here in just one moment.
All right. So you know Rob.
So Rob and I have been together probably since I joined the VA police. He was my supervisor. We're good friends. And I just testified on January 25th on his merit system promotion federal proceeding. And for that, I was placed under investigation for falsifying a police report, which is alleged that the VA OIG asked the VA police to investigate me. Sad thing about that is the VA OIG never asked the police to investigate me, and in exchange for my time off this Easter with my family, if I didn't give a coerced statement to the officials, they weren't going to let me have time with my family.
You're talking, they just did this recently, right now?
Right now. Just had to give it to them.
You know, you're kind of putting yourself in a little bit of jeopardy coming on here. One thing, testifying on behalf of Rob, but to come on live radio, being broadcasted throughout the world, being a current, police officer over there at Bay Pines. God bless you, man. That's unbelievable. Who's doing this? The police, chief of police is putting the screws to you? Who's doing it specifically?
Well, the Bob Chauvin until recently was putting the screws to me since 2009, where as a whistleblower, he tried to terminate myself and 5 of my supervisors. And we fought that, won that, chased me for years. We filed a federal court case against them. They awarded us $1.2 million in damages. And, of course, the VA always puts a caveat that, they'll agree to a settlement as long as they don't have to admit guilt. And since 2014, he's pretty much come after myself and my family and stalked and terrorized me since 2014 on Easter, Christmas, and Thanksgiving. I pretty much have suffered and withstood the agony of opening my mouth.
So are you doing,
they're right now trying to bring another case to terminate me.
What are you doing about this? Are you looking at bringing another case against them as well?
Right now, I'm trying to get the Inspector General, along with been writing the Secretary. I probably got about 10 emails into the Secretary. I've filed a request for Mark Rubio, the Congressman, to start a congressional investigation. But in the process, you know, with politics and everything, by the time they actually get around doing anything, I'll probably be forced to retire and try to keep a roof over my family's head.
Have you, again, I guess my question would be, you know, it sounds like I don't know if you use the same attorney that Rob had there. Are you looking at hiring counsel and lighting them up again like a Roman Candle here?
Well, you know, the problem is for me is, you know, money. You know, they're not cheap, and it really broke us the first time. You know, so I've always been trying to fight it with the least amount of cost out of my pocket.
Right.
And it nearly costed me my marriage. My 21-year-old son left my house and moved out because of these people. Because he said he wasn't going to go through what he went through 5 years of watching me go through it again.
Jiminy.
Yeah, Ron, real quick, guys. If I could just jump in here, guys. Real quick, I talked to a lot of these guys that were involved in this case, and my assessment, this is my opinion, the assessment is these folks that were involved in this case, this $1 million lawsuit, are not the same people that I knew 10 years ago. They're not the same people no more. It's affected them that bad. It's that much.
Well, it's just wrong, and the sad part is, and you know, we've reported on this too because we've had many other people that, you know, same position. You know, when you hit a certain level, then whatever happens, the government's picking up the tab for their legals. But below that, the people like yourselves that wrongdoings are happening, yeah, you've got the right to sue, but federal government ain't paying your attorney fees. You got to dig into your pocket, and that's a huge injustice there, and there needs to be a change to this. I mean, yeah, you have the rights, but it'll cost you, your entire savings and then some, and it destroys families, bankrupt people. You know, when I was with a law firm, I mean, everyone talks so much about, you got, due process and all of that. I have literally seen families pay their last time and go in debt, and extended family members reaching for money, and it just destroys them.
And guys, one more point real quick. I put one more thing on this. There was an officer, Chad DeMaria, was involved in this case, and he did commit suicide on this.
Oh, no.
Subsequently, a short time after this case was settled, he did commit suicide. Now, I feel terrible for his poor mother, Christine. I feel horrible about this. And all she wants to get is answers. She would like to meet with that director down there at Bay Pines and just for a few minutes and just, tell me why. Find out, tell me why this happened. How could this have happened? And why are these folks still there? This man who went after his wife was involved. She was a coworker of ours also. Chad's wife was involved in this case too, and that destroyed their marriage. And their kids are without a father now because of these folks.
Mm-hmm.
And his poor mother has been coming down to these town hall meetings at the VA and just trying to get with that director. Can I get 5 minutes to pull you aside and we just talk about this? And they will not talk to her. They will not reach out to her and just say, this is what happened. They won't talk to her. She came down to a town hall meeting a year ago, and they had the cops follow her around. That's how resistant they are to talk to anybody and give somebody an answer, give somebody comfort, to find out what happened to their child. And they hide out. They run away. They run away from things, and that's the way they do. They feel they are not responsible for anything they do to people. They are not responsible for that. In fact, I'll tell you another thing. We had an overdose in police custody about a year and a half ago. An individual was arrested for drug distribution of the property and sales. There was 2 officers in that department had left that person, that veteran who was arrested. They handcuffed him in the front and left him in an interview room with his belongings. with his pills, had access to them, and his alcohol. And you know what he did? He downed those pills in police custody in that interview room. And he wound up in a coma. Luckily, he lived. But he was charged on that case, and they are still prosecuting this guy. You know, this is stuff that happens that needs to be, you know, brought out to the world. You know, the ineptness in that department, the training, the lack of training on things. They let these people go wild on these investigations, and they are not reined in. They are not reined in on these things. They let these things go. They run with these things, and some folks are just not trained on how to do these procedures. There's no way somebody should be handcuffed in the front and have access to their medication while they are in police custody.
If you go in and look at their record, there's probably a certification in there that says they've been trained in this.
Right. I know there's training records that are signed off. There's procedures, SOPs, memorandums of understanding, things like that. You know, but I'll tell you this: if you're in good standing with the management, if they like you, if you're one of their guys that toes the party line, they'll overlook these things. They'll protect you to a point. They will protect you.
It's called the Good Old Boy Network, and it runs all the way across the United States.
Yep, you could not have said that better. They will overlook things and let things slide like that. Now, I'll tell you another thing is a privacy violation they're big at. We have control of an NCIC machine, the warrants and the photos, the driver's license information and access. We've had 2 violations of that within the last 5 years. I'll tell you one thing. We had a dispatcher that ran all her Facebook friends and everybody real quick, and all her things that was a violation. She ran hundreds and hundreds of violations with all her friends. We don't know why. It was never brought out, but she was removed. And we had another case where we had officer folks that were just running people indiscriminately, just to look up information. You know, it's the tool that we're given, and the discipline is not there to handle that.
That's against regulations in any police department I know of.
It sure is. You know, that is.
For you here. Have you had any complaints? Not fellow officers, but other personnel of the VA facility. Has any of them come to you, or have you heard of any complaints where they have been threatened?
Absolutely. You know, I could speak of that we can go on for hours and hours. People come in and say, you know, my doctor threatened to do this to me, you know, all kinds of issues, you know, whether it be claims.
What do you do with those complaints when you get them? What do you do with them?
Well, a lot of things you will file a report on things. You will investigate these things. You will, you know, go to as far as you can to investigate these things. Some are they just don't have any muster, and maybe some do, and some you do have to go to the OIG office, you know, OIG office, and sometimes you have to pass the case on, and because they can run with it further. So that's how those work.
But if I understood you correctly, the head of that facility could quash this as well, correct?
Yeah, as far as I know, they do have meetings. The head of that facility, the director, will have meetings with the OIG for briefings on cases. They will do that. A lot of the OIG cases, a lot of the agents that do take these investigations are not privy to tell them much. It just falls. You know, it's one of them things. They will tell them a lot. They may not. They may hold back things. It just depends on the situation. But so sometimes the OIG does get involved.
Ron, do you have anything further here? You called in to support your buddy here. You jumped in. You want to jump in on anything else here?
Well, you know, to touch on that NCIC thing, you know, years ago, and that was part of the complaints that I sent to Washington, D.C., which started this whole debacle for me and a lot of other people that supported me, was we had a sergeant who was running our own police officers through the NCIC system, and he claimed he was doing it to verify their addresses, which is a clear violation of the state of Florida. We go through the Florida's DAVID system, which falls under the Driver's Privacy Protection Act, both federal and the state of Florida. basically what he received at the end of the day was a higher clearance and a promotion.
Oh, Jesus.
For violating both state and federal law. This also is the same person who caused a spinal cord injury when he assaulted another police officer as a supervisor. And this is what they awarded him with a higher and better job.
That's correct. That is correct.
Boy, you got some problems over there. Is this just your facility, or does this go on throughout the United States and other facilities?
They've had other incidences. You can pretty much Google those and see those.
I'll tell you one thing, guys. One thing, you can Google and just put Bay Pines police in there. Just put reporters in Tampa Tribune, the newspaper. There's a reporter down here, Howard Altman, has picked up on a lot of these stories through the years. And just about a lot of these things we have talked about have been published in the local newspaper down here. As far as with the David abuse, the NCIC abuse, the drug overdose was a recent article. In fact, they had I don't know if you've seen this one, it was on Jake Tapper on CNN about the dead body that was left out in the hallway for hours. A deceased veteran, I'm sure that was down here at our facility back in February. And, it's another story. It's another thing that just, they just cover up.
I guess I'll be a little more poignant with my question. Obviously, this is what's going on there. Have you heard of other instances in other facilities, and do you believe or know if it's just, an isolated few, or is this pretty much how things are run, and these type of problems are pretty much throughout the U.S.? I
think a lot of these things, in my opinion, a lot of these things are riddled throughout the system. We are not a perfect organization. Like the police service, we're growing through the years. It's been growing. It's not perfect. They're not where they want to be yet. Maybe someday they get there. Maybe someday they won't. I don't know. But these things, I do hear stories and hear cases of all kinds of violations. I'll tell you one story I do know was in an article years ago. They had one officer went through the NCIC machine, pulled a lot of folks' social security numbers and opened credit cards in those accounts, and he was prosecuted. And that was another facility down here in Florida a number of years ago.
Well, thank God they
so things like that do happen. Right. They are not unique to Bay Pines itself, but just a landscape through the VA itself. These things do happen. Now, I don't mean to paint the VA with a wide brush like that, but it does happen. And these things, and a lot of the line folks down here, I don't mean to hammer on them, but a lot of the line folks are just good people. They do their job. It's the upper management is the problem, and there is no accountability at that level. There's nothing there, not looked at. There's no accountability there.
Yeah, what you just pointed out could happen with any big business. All it takes is a greedy individual.
Yeah. We're running out of time here. I'm going to throw this open to your buddy Ron as well. Ron, what haven't we got out there that you want to get out there?
My big thing is that Mr. Shulkin, the VA secretary, said on Fox News he's going to drain the swamp at the VA, and I've got multiple emails to him, and I have just like 15 minutes of his time to explain to myself and my wife why a secretary cannot just turn around and say, stop what you're doing, you're violating our policies and the federal law, and I'm not going to tolerate it.
Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah, I've had, we've had 3 or 4 people, one being specifically an attorney, and I asked the question, exactly what power does the VA secretary have? Can he just, walk in on something that, is egregious, et cetera, and say, stop or inquire? And the answer is, yeah, he has that power. My question is, well, then why isn't he using it? It needs to be used if he has that power. Otherwise, it's just going to be the same thing, just another name there.
And you know what it is, guys? It goes back to what I said earlier. We don't know what these folks are told at that level. We don't know what information they're getting. We don't know what they're told, whether it's the truth or not. We just don't know.
Right.
And there's a thing is they don't want to have contact with the folks down there on the front lines. There's no contact, there's no communication, there's no way to reach these people. You can call the office and email them, and what they do is they funnel it back right to your supervisor. You make a complaint about something, you may have merit and muster on your complaint, and it may go to central office and may reach the secretary's hands. What they do is they email it right back to your supervisor and handle it. That's what they're told to do.
Boomerang effect is all it is. So nothing's
exactly. You got it.
Done. Okay.
That's it.
Ron, final comments, if you would, please.
I wish that the President of the United States would bother listening to some of this and bring Mr. Shokin in and say, what's going on in that VA? Make those managers go away and fix it for these people that are standing up, fighting to make it a better place.
Well, on that note, we have been promised by the Dr. Shulkin that he would be coming on our show.
Right.
We spoke to them, and they said we needed to wait until he got sworn in. He's sworn in, so we're still pursuing that issue. I certainly hope his word's better than McDonald's. We got the same promise as well, and they were going to come on, but I think it was like 24 hours before. They tried dictating to us how, what questions. They wanted to control it, and I said, no. We're not going down that road, and so it didn't happen. So hopefully Dr. Shulkin's word's better than McDonald's. So, Ron, I want to thank you for coming on. I'm going to stick you in the blue room here while we wrap things up. You can listen, but we won't be able to hear you talk. I want to thank you for coming on. I wish you had come on a little bit earlier there. That would have been great. Thanks a million.
I was writing my statement.
Okay, he's in the blue room there. So, Rob, any final comments? And what do you have anything that we didn't cover that you want to touch on here?
Basically, I just wish that this reach out on these folks, this retaliation, would just stop through the system. There needs to be a way to mitigate these things and stop these things. And, training is, could be done. I don't know. I don't have the answer. And also, the suicides have got to be addressed on these facilities. It's an epidemic and it needs to be stopped. There needs to be a way to reach out. I don't know if their nice little program is going to work. I don't know. It hasn't been introduced down there yet at that facility at Bay Pines. It goes in committees for 4 to 6 months, and, they come up with OIs and, things to do and how we're going to work it. And if it costs money, that may be another problem. And it gets out there, they do it for 6 months, and it falls off the rails, and you never hear about it again. That's how those things work. That's my experience with these new programs that come out. I remember the thing that, eradicate veteran homelessness. Doesn't, years ago, that was a great thing, but it falls off the rails. Nobody talks about it no more. I haven't heard that in years, in about 2 years. Veteran homelessness. It was great when it came out, but you just don't hear about it no more. Nobody follows up on these things.
Yeah.
The VA moves to the next, interesting thing of the week, the next big thing, and they move on and they concentrate on that for a few months. Then that thing falls off and something else happens and they concentrate. It's just flavor of the week. Flavor of the week. That's how they work.
Well, Ron,
I just don't know if there's any long-term commitment.
Ron's still on here listening. I want to throw this out to both of you. Number one, both of you are invited at any point in time. You've got our phone number. If something comes up, you think that, we need to be aware of it. Our listeners, feel free, call in. We'll scoot you in for a couple minutes. If something comes up that you think is that we're going to need to spend more time on other than a short couple minutes on you just blowing in, get a hold of Rhonda. We'll get you scheduled back on the show. Love to hear from you. And you, Rob, please specifically, you just fired up a lawsuit. Keep us in the know. Give us a call. Let us know what's happening.
One more second here. There's another individual down there at that facility, Keith Hansford, has filed another lawsuit, too, a year ago. A multi-million-dollar suit. I think it was $5 million, if I'm correct. That was filed. We do have the same attorney, Leon Blaze, that was filed a year ago for retaliation, whistleblower, and all the above things you could think of. And that is on the table right now in district court.
Let me say this. If you know of any other whistleblowers out there that want to come on here, they have a story to tell, love to have them on, have them contact us. You know, that's what we're about here. That's what we're about here.
Right.
You know, so.
No, and I'm glad to get the message out. I appreciate the time. I love being on here. It's great. It's wonderful. And just to get the message out and make people aware, make the vets aware of what's going on in these VAs. And we can address these problems and get the word out.
One last thing, too. You know, even though people that did not hear the show live, everything's archived. So, you know, within a matter of minutes of the show being over, it's on the website, thebuchananreport.com, where it says radio. Click on it and it goes to all of our shows are archived. We don't do any editing whatsoever. If I screw up and say something I shouldn't, it's there forever. But, you know, people can come on and listen to this show at a later date if they want. So if you'd like, spread the word there. And again, any other whistleblowers, you know, that would like to come on, sure love to have them.
Thank you, sir. It's great being here. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you, Rob. Thank you, Rob and Ron, for your service. I just don't know what to say. You know, it's a travesty.
And you guys, too. Thank you for your service. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you for what you do.
Blue room. Stick you in the blue room now. Rob is in the blue room. Rhonda, you there?
She had to step back to take care of some business.
All right, I'm here.
Playing
I had
with the
to
dogs,
mute it.
are you?
No, my dad.
Yeah, I know. Rhonda happens to be remote, not where she generally is, out with her dad in another state, so we appreciate her coming on, being a part of the program. Backbone of the program, actually. Any final comments, Rhonda? Did he have any information? You know, that's one thing we didn't do. Is there any site out there, Facebook or otherwise, that that needed to be plugged? Boy, did I blow that one. I was so happy to talk to someone, got some of my questions answered here on how they operate.
I know. I figured you would be talking, so I didn't have to worry about it. But yes, Bay Pines Exposed on Facebook. I did post it on the Buchanan Report Facebook page, so it is there.
Bay Pines Exposed. Is there a phone number if someone wants to make a telephone contact, any of that? In fact, he's on here. Let me put him on. Here.
Yeah,
Bobby,
they can message them.
Rob, you there?
Yes, sir, right here.
I apologize through the whole show. We get it out there 2 or 3 times. You know, you got a Facebook page. Do you have another page, a phone number people can contact you? What's your contact info out there?
Just send a message to Bay Pines Exposed. One of the buddies of mine runs this. Just throw your information out there. We'll get back to you. And, you know, if you have any issues, you know, we'll do what we can to get your message out.
Fantastic.
On Bay Pines Exposed under Facebook. No phone number. Just send us an IM or a message to that, and we'll get back to you.
Yes,
okay.
They're very quick about it.
Thanks, Rob. Putting you back in the blue room here. Thank you. Boy, did I blow that one, huh? Jeez.
You're fired.
Yeah, I'll deduct my pay.
We're going to be talking to quite a few whistleblowers here coming up.
Cool.
Good.
I know that makes you happy.
Yeah, it does, because there are people on the front line that are trying to do the right thing, and they're just getting shit on, flat out, and it just, you know, there is a special place in my heart for people that try to do the right thing, and they do it, and they know full well that the minute that they start it, you know, all hell's going to break loose. And you know, it's just not them, it's their entire family, their extended family.
Right.
You know, almost 40 years I've done this, and I can't tell you how many cases, Ron knows, you know, these things just climb into you know, it engulfs you and your whole family, and it actually, it can hurt financially. It definitely takes over on what you do on a daily basis, a weekly basis, you know, and I'm talking about negatively. You know, not positive. There's not much positive about trying to do the right thing in situations like these whistleblowers are in. You know, it's so my heart goes out to them. It's a tough position, but I tell you, if it wasn't for them doing it, you know, we wouldn't know what's going on.
No, we wouldn't.
How we find out.
Yep. I wish that somebody, I'll throw this out to the listeners there. Anybody got any suggestions? You all know what we do here and all that. You all have any suggestions for us on what we could do to better what we're trying to do? Love to hear from you. Any suggestions besides from my critics that say, go crap and die, you know. Well, you know, there are a lot of people out there that don't, you know, I mean, there's some people that think we're actually anti-VA because most of the stuff that we talk about, as you reported the other day, Ron, you know, everything we report on is negative stuff, you know. Love to report positive stuff. Get it to us.
Well, I can thankfully say I don't get that around here, but no, you're right. That's something we've always tried to put across. If you have something good, let us know, because we cannot report it to anybody if we don't know.
Right.
And the sad part is this: all the VA alerts that I get, I'm not really getting any VA alerts that have to do with good things. So
good things, no. I see most of mine in like the local newspaper or online, you know, things like that.
Well, I'm going to go out on the line and say something here. You know, I've shut my mouth and really held my tongue. You know, you want to give Dr. Shulkin enough time, you know, to show what he's about. And I'll be the first one to say that probably hasn't been enough time yet, but I will say this. I've heard a lot of things that he has said on Fox and other medias, and I'm really starting to get skeptical here. All I can
do is talk like a teenager and say, whatever.
You know, we all hope.
That doesn't sound right.
We all hope for the best, but man, I'm starting to get a little skeptical here. I mean, if the man has the power to stop certain things and he's not using it, I'm sorry, I go skeptical.
Yeah.
All right. Anything else, Rhonda?
Nope, that's all I had.
Well, Ron, it sounds like we're back to you.
I do have a quotable quote for tonight. And it's from Albert Einstein. When you are courting a nice girl, an hour seems like a second. When you sit on a red-hot cinder, a second seems like an hour. That's relativity.
Yes. Well,
Don't forget, 1 out of 4 people out there think that, you know, one indiscretion, now that's not cheating. So,
yeah.
Okay. All right. This is the Buchanan Report radio show. I'd like to thank Rob, his buddy Ron, for coming on. Rob being the whistleblower, Bob O'Neill, regarding problems there at VA Pines, at the Bay Pines VA, Gemini Medical
there you
Center.
go.
Haven't had a drink. No. Yeah, and Rob, I know, Rob, you're still listening. I meant what I said. I do want to talk to you here in the next 2-3 days, so I'll arrange that through Rhonda here. I've got a few more questions if you have the time. Again, this is the Buchanan Report radio show, April 13th, 2017. Thank you much. We'll be back next week. Glad to hear we got more whistleblowers coming on. Last thing,
yes.
Are any of them on for next week, Rhonda?
Next week, I don't believe so. They're the following week.
Okay, fantastic. All right, y'all have a good night. See you next week.
Yes, definitely have a good night.